social studies. We got one more week until our big April vacation, so I hope you're ready. Ready to spring into history? Alright, that was terrible. But well, today, chapter 16 is a really cool chapter. We're learning about some big heroes of mine. And these are Americans that worked for reform. And they worked for civil rights even before the civil rights movement. So these are the reformers. You've already learned about a couple of them. Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. We've already learned about them. And they'll be in this chapter, but there's so many more too. Like Horace Mann, big education reformer from Massachusetts. And of course, Dorothea Dix, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. These are big woman rights activists. And it's a really cool part of American history. It's the beginning of everyone getting equal rights. It took 100 years, so it took a while. But we're going to learn about these heroes now. So after hearing so many bad things about America, you know, the Trail of Tears, Andrew Jackson, how he treated Native Americans, at least we can feel a little better about this chapter. We get some heroes fighting for rights, and sometimes successfully. And eventually, hopefully, we will all be successful being equal under the law. All right, so let's do chapter 16, shall we? Americans work for reform. Frederick Douglass worked to end slavery. Should there be free schools for all children? Should there be laws to end slavery? Should men and women have the same rights? People asked these questions in the early 1800s. Many people answered no to these questions. Other people wanted to improve the country. These Americans began to work for reform. In the early 1800s, there were no laws that said children must go to school. Sure, you guys all love that, right? Well, many children worked on farms and in factories. Children from rich families went to fine private schools. But children from poor families did not attend good schools. They often went to public schools that had only one big classroom. All grades were in the classroom. These schools had only one teacher. There were few books. There were not very many high schools. Horace Mann worked to improve public schools in Massachusetts. He worked to have the state pay for children to go to public schools. People built bigger schools that had many classrooms. People built more high schools. Mann started the first school to teach people how to be good teachers. He also helped teachers earn higher pay. So I've taught at a Horace Mann Elementary. I went to Framingham State, which is actually Horace Mann's first school ever. So that's what they're talking about. So I actually went there. So he's a famous person in history with education. Massachusetts had better schools because of Horace Mann. Other states began to improve their schools too. States passed laws that said children must go to school. At that time, girls could not get the same education that boys could. Often they could only go to school if there was room. This is usually in the summer. Girls were not taught science or math. Girls were not allowed to go to college. Emma Willard helped girls get a better education. She started the first high school for girls. Mary Lyon also helped women get a better education. She decided to start a college for women. It was called Mount Holyoke Female Seminary. Mount Holyoke opened in Massachusetts in 1837. Women at Mount Holyoke studied the same subjects that men studied in other colleges. So I hope you can see the pride right here. Massachusetts has a big history in education. We had the first public schools in 1642, the first one to make a law that every kid had to go to school. We had the first college in America in 1636, Harvard University. And all this. So we still are. We're still considered one of the best schools in the country for a state. We have the best education. If we don't have the best, it's always one of the best. So you should be proud of that. That's something to be proud of. Soon other colleges for women were started. Women were allowed to study in some colleges with men. Oberlin College in Ohio became the first college for men and women. It also had many African American students. At first, there were few schools for children with disabilities. Thomas Gallaudet believed deaf children should go to school. In 1817, he started a free school for deaf children in Connecticut. In the 1830s, there were more than 2 million African American slaves. Most of them lived in the South. Some Americans believed slavery was wrong. They wanted all slaves to be free. They wanted new laws to end slavery. The people who worked to end slavery were called abolitionists. William Lloyd Garrison became an abolitionist leader. He published a newspaper about ending slavery. Frederick Douglass was an African American abolitionist. Douglass had been a slave. He ran away to the north and became free. Douglass gave many speeches. Again, he told people why slavery was wrong. Many people heard Douglass and became abolitionists. Dorothea Dix was another American who worked for reform. Dix visited many jails. She worked to make jails better for prisoners. Dix also saw that many prisoners were in jails because they had mental illness. She said these people should not be in jail. Dix said people with mental illness should be treated in hospitals. She helped start hospitals to care for people with mental illness. In the 1800s, the fight for women's rights began. Some people felt that women were not treated fairly. Women were not allowed to vote. Married women had to give their money to their husbands. Women could not get good jobs. They could not become doctors or lawyers. Women who worked earned much less money than men did. Some women abolitionists decided that women should have the same rights that men had. They wanted women to have the right to vote. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was an abolitionist. She was one of the leaders in the fight for women's rights. In 1848, Stanton helped plan the first large meeting about women's rights. This meeting was in Seneca Falls, New York. About 240 women and men came to the meeting. Stanton gave a speech. She said women should be allowed to vote. She told why women needed more rights. Frederick Douglass and other people joined the fight for women's rights. Slowly, women did win more rights. In another book too, you will learn how women won the right to vote in 1920. That took too long. Many people in the United States worked for reform in the 1800s. They wanted Americans to have better lives. All right, so those are some heroes of mine who fought for our rights and civil rights even before slavery had ended. These people were fighting for women and for African Americans early on. All right, so it's good we're learning about them, and hopefully we'll have a great week this week on our way to April vacation. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.